It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce Mira, Clicer, your married name is Lauber, and Mira, we're in your beautiful home in Herzliya Pituach in Israel. And Mira, you were born in what is
at that time called Yugoslavia in 1935, 23 of April, and I was born in a small village. The village people have very important period in my life, so that's why I mentioned them. I don't remember anything of my childhood, actually, till I may say, till beginning of 41 April, we were already living in Novi Sad. We moved from the village to the town, and my parents had a business of alcohol, a big agro business. I was the only child and the only great daughter, spoiled of course.
And what was the village that you were born?
Catch. And our life changed totally on I think it was a rainy, cloudy day, 19th of April, I think, or some April day, 41. And you know, that's my really first very strong memory. I went to the dining room and I've seen a beautiful shiny material on one of the chairs, and I put it on me, started dancing and enjoying it. And you know, the only child was used that the parents should admire me and my grandmother should admire me. And all of a sudden they walked in and they were very serious, and they told me, please give it to us. This is a flag of Hungary. We must hang it up that everybody should see it. We stopped to be Yugoslavia. From today we are Hungary. And I've seen my parents very upset. I didn't understand nothing, why. And my grandmother was even crying. At home I spoke 3 languages. My parents Serb, grandmother German, and with them 2 workers Hungarian. So I had no problem in language, because my parents told me we should not speak Serb, we should now start speaking only Hungarian. The life started to be not nice and not pleasant, because the house changed. It was not anymore a jolly house. As visitors, it was quiet. And I stayed at home a lot with my grandma, because my parents went to the business. And my father used to travel also on business. And 1st of September I started the school in Hungarian language, so it was no problem for me, because I spoke Hungarian. And then it started to be very winter, and very cold winter, and one morning in 42, January 23, I was sleeping with my mother in the same bed, because, you know, to be loved and cuddled. And we have seen that outside is very cold. The light was on in the room, and observed by the workers Hungarian, came in the room, he said, "Madam, they are taking the Jews, and your friends is my friend and my mother's friend. They are already waiting for you in front of the house." And you know, I felt my mother like hug, but it was more than a hug. And the same moment walked in, I don't remember if 2 or 3 Hungarian special soldiers that they had a Hamlet with feather of chicken. And they started shouting, "Get up and get dressed." I remember that I was sitting on the bed, I remember the pyjama even, and my mother started, to open the buttons, because when the Hungarian army occupied Yugoslavia, they took in private Jewish homes rooms for the not how to tell you, army people, but on higher degree, officers. I never saw any officer, never. But at the table I heard my grandmother say, "Oh, this food is left over, take it to the officers." Or this they will take it to the officers. They had the entrance door, the room. I didn't see ever anybody, but I knew that there were officers in the house.
Mira, this is the only picture you have with you and your parents.
Yeah, together.
And this is when it was still Yugoslavia, before the...
Yes, it was still Yugoslavia.
Before it was Hungary came.
At that time, you had to order somebody to come to take pictures.
A photographer. And this is a picture of your grandmother on your father's side.
Yes.
Did you ever meet your grandmother on your father's side?
I had grandmother from my mother's side.
Mm-hmm.
I had.
But this is on your father's side.
I don't have her picture.
Mm-hmm. And your parents, wow, this is a picture of your father.
He was a great lady killer, I was told.
What was his name?
Milan. Miksa in Hungary and Milan in Serb.
So special. And this was these were in Novi Sad.
That before he was married.
Wow.
These
are so special.
This is from 34. It's written by his handwriting. 34.
And your mother, she was a very pretty lady, your mother.
My mother was a very special type. They say, I don't remember.
What was her name, your mother's name?
Riza.
Riza. You've got beautiful pictures of your mother.
She was also an only daughter to her parents. No, this is not nice.
And Mira, this is a picture of you in the school.
This little girl, unluckily, was taken to Auschwitz. Her name was Vera.
And where is she in the picture, Vera?
We've been in kindergarten, Purim.
And which one are you in the picture?
The tall
The
one.
tall one.
She was 1 year younger than me.
And you remember her?
Sure.
And she was
Sweet little girl.
and she never survived. She went to Auschwitz. Wow. And Mira, you have such beautiful pictures. How did these pictures survive?
After me, they will burn it all. Ah, that's me. That's when I was still in the village, but I don't remember. When I was free, that's already in Budapest.
In Budapest. So Mira, can I ask, when you were that morning,
Yeah.
do you remember that? Do you remember that morning?
The officer came in from another door and talked to the soldiers, and then looked at my mother and told her, leave her, like, leave her alone. And I remember my mother, she just stood up, and the Ozeret Hungarian came in already with her coat. She was very official, you know. And my mother...
Do you recall? You remember this?
Like it was yesterday.
What do you say?
From that moment, everything. No, from the moment of the flag. And
before the flag, you don't remember.
no, normal life.
Do you remember your father?
Sure. And my mother just stood up, I think on her nightie. She just put the coat, and I think I'm sure she went with slippers. I remember her nightie, gray and off-white stripes, and she walked out and she never looked at me. And my grandma said, yes, she looked at me and she was crying and she spoke to me in German. I don't remember nothing. I heard shooting. And I just remember myself sitting next to the oven, you know. In Europe it was -20. And the men who used to work in our house, also in the business, he came around evening when it started to be dark. He said, you know, they were killing the Jews in the Danube. What was my tragedy actually, especially privately, that I never ever could cry. I just became quiet and stone. I never cried. I never ever cried from that moment. Never. That's a big tragedy of my life.
Even till today?
Even no, a little. That's why I didn't know that, but I'll tell you that later. Anyway, my father was on business trip. He came back 2 days later. I non-stop heard the shooting. I realized that my mother won't come back, and my grandmother. Somehow I felt it. And my father came the second night home. He was not welcomed by the workers. He had to really make a big noise to open for him the door. And he straight away, I just remember standing him next to the wall crying. And he straight away told me, I am going now out, I'll come later for you. He came for me. I remember myself all at once and some of his family. He took me first to one family, next day to another family. And my mother was running the business with very strong hands, and now that she wasn't, he asked his cousin and her husband to be in the business. And as a child, somehow I became the little spoiled child who was always mischief. I became so quiet, so good. I never said nothing. Everything. But somebody asked me, yes, thank you. If they asked negative, no, thank you. And then my father told me one day, I am taking you to Budapest. Hungary. And he took me to his family, his uncle, his uncle's wife, and they had the only daughter married to a professor. And in Hungary, people lost their jobs earlier. They had no money, so they needed money. They accepted me for money. And of course, that was 18th of February, 42. I saw my father again, and 30th of June, somebody came from me to Budapest and took me to Novi Sad. It's 2 hours by train. And I just remember my father walking out with a big rucksack and laughing and saying, I'll come to pick you up. I'll come back to pick you up. Then I was taken back to Budapest, and I've got postcards from him, and how much he's missing me. He's coming to pick me up soon. And then it was 43 December, Christmas. People came to tell us that the Red Cross let some people talk on the radio to send messages. I didn't hear my father, but there are people that I heard him, that he said everything is going to be okay. I love you, my daughter Mira, and I shall come and pick you up. That was the last time. I didn't hear him. Look, the life, as I told you, I was always the best little girl in this universe. Never said no, never said yes, where I was not expected. I never cried, never asked for a piece of bread or nothing, what I was served. The British bombed. Anyway, we were living in a very nice apartment, and in 44 April, the German army walked into Budapest. We have to move from this house, and because Jews had to carry, the
Yellow Star.
The Yellow Star, and we were forbidden to go that hour out, and we have been forbidden to buy here, and forbidden millions of things.
Mira, is this a picture of you in Budapest?
Yes. Stupid picture.
No, it's a lovely picture.
And
it's amazing that they took these pictures.
It was taken in Novi Sad, but I was on my way maybe to Budapest. Because, my father let me prepare lots of dresses and all. I should be arranged okay for the war. With these beautiful dresses, that's what I needed for the war.
And here you with the doll? How old were you in these pictures? Mira, how old do you think you were in these pictures?
Pardon me?
How old were you?
7. Not yet, 6.5.
And do you remember the doll? Do you remember?
I remember the dress.
And the doll?
The doll not, but yes, when I am thinking a lot, that was a terrible doll. I had in my home a beautiful big doll from my mother. The doll was from porcelain, beautiful. Today it would be a fortune.
So this is 1942.
Yes.
This picture was taken in 42. And Mira, can I just ask,
Pardon me?
did you know what had happened to your mother?
She was killed in the Danube.
They took your mother away.
Yes, straight this morning. I didn't tell you because it's obvious. More than 3,000 Jews and Serbs were killed in the Danube. They had to cut in the...
To dig, they dug.
Yes, to make a hole, and they were shot in the Danube.
And your grandmother as well.
Yes,
And if your father would have been home, they would have...
as well. But you see, I was...
And this was the Hungarians.
This officer, he must have enjoyed the food from my parents, my grandmother, and maybe he was still a little mensch and said, the child just don't take.
And that's how you survived.
This way, at that time, this way I survived.
And did you know that your mother was killed, or did you have an idea?
No, yes, the man who was working in our house, he told all the Jews were killed,
Oy.
and he was very cold about. And as I told you, I was never able one drop of to cry, never. It was a stone in me.
And Mira, this was Hungarians, not Germans, who took...
Pardon me?
The Hungarians took your mother and your grandmother. It wasn't Germans.
No, the Hungarians.
The Arrow Cross.
That was called some kind of special Hungarian soldiers. They were with a helmet with a long, big straw.
So it's a miracle that he said, don't take the girl, that don't take you. It's a
They
miracle.
just walked in the Jewish houses and took the Jews. So anyway, I continue. And in Budapest we have to move away from this house. We went to another house, and again, you know, the Jews were not allowed to sit near the shelter door, but the back. So it were endless laws. And 1st of July, 44, sunny day, beautiful day, and all of a sudden was alarm, and the sky became black. And we went to the shelter, and when we walked out, only, if I remember well, only our house stood. They were all bombed.
Mira, can I just ask you, these pictures, I think this is in Budapest.
This is, no, I don't want her lady. I didn't like her. She was never nice to me. She was the wife of my father's uncle. She never liked me.
Was this in Budapest?
Yeah. I think she actually hated me.
Oh, why would she hate you?
Because, it was another mouse to feed. It was, who needs a child during the war? That's me. Here I was 43, beginning of 44. Here, yes, 43.
And here you're holding with a carriage.
Yeah. Ah, yes. That my father bought me in Novi Sad. That I brought it to Budapest.
But you look happy in the picture.
Happy? I was never happy. But I always pretended that I'm, how to tell you, that everything is perfect. Because when you are an orphan, you dependent on other people, and you have to be, you have to pretend that everything is perfect.
So these are such beautiful pictures.
Yeah, this doll I liked. She had a red dress.
It's amazing that you have these pictures.
Oh, who cares?
Ah, it's so valuable. It's so special.
No, nobody looks at them. I shall fix it later.
And Mira, can I just ask?
This was a friend of my father who was Hungarian, and the mother also friend of my mother. This was in 40, maybe 41, a Sylvester. I know, because I was told. Yes, here are the both couples.
In 41, 42.
Yeah.
Is this still in...
It's written in Hungarian. Yes, 40.
But growing up, you remember you were very happy as a child with your parents.
With my parents, I was living a normal life, spoiled little child.
Such a beautiful picture with your parents.
That's why I don't remember. That's a normal life. A child doesn't remember normal things. You remember something special.
And Mira, can I ask, when your father took you to Budapest?
He was taken to the Jewish First Army through the Hungarian army. He, as I told you, he sent me last time regards from Russia. Because the Jews were taken to the Hungarian army to dig the snow,
trenches
without arms. They never got arms. You didn't know that?
And he was sent to Russia to...
He was sent to Russia, and it's very also a story how I know exactly. Anyway, I tell you, this day that the British bombed, we again had to move, and we were taken to the ghetto. That was not at that time yet a ghetto, but later we went to a camp that the SS made special camp for Budapest Jews, that they are special rich with money. They had to pay for that camp. And we arrived to that camp with my young aunt on a very rainy night, and we took off the yellow star, and it was a terrible night. But we arrived, and from there we were taken, of course, only out of desperate people believe that the Nazis want to take care of you. And the 1st of December 44, they wake us up, and that was like a concentration camp, and get out, and then I just have to remind this. I was standing in the second row and I saw two young boys being tortured terribly. And what's said in the story, that they were looking at me straight to my eyes. And later I realized, of course, that his parents must have been paying for them a lot of money in the best place to survive. And from then we were taken to the ghetto. In the ghetto, you know, it's a ghetto. And but again, we were waiting every moment that the Nazis will come and throw in fire, you know, to burn us alive. And the uncle from my father told that we should sit next to the door, and so if we burned, it won't take long. We will. So this way I saw all these thousands of sick people and dead people being taken out. And I think again it was 21 of 45 January. It was a very quiet night. And my uncle asked me, do you know still how to say bread in Serb? I said, sure, I remember. So I went to the gate and I've seen the Russian soldier with the bayonets and that German soldier. And I shouted, please, bread, bread, nobody stopped. And this way ended the ghetto.
Did they give you some bread?
No, but later. And now, for me personally, it's very important one thing to tell. I went with the joint, I was sent to Romania to family of my father, and they were very, very nice to me. And I went back of 5th of September 48 to Budapest. Again I started Hungarian school, and of course I was waiting for my father, and you know, we put announcement here, I am looking for my father, Clicer, that, and whomever you have seen, and you thought maybe he was in Russia. I stopped him and asked, nobody knew about him. And then really started a very bad time for me. As I told you at the beginning, it was my father's uncle who was very nice to me. His wife hated me. His daughter, she was in 42, almost 30, 29 years old, married to a doctor of university for Hungarian history, Greek and Latin, intellectual. And he was also taken with all the Jewish men, so during the war I was always with this three, the eldest couple and the young woman. The young lady was quite nice to me. And she went 12th of April, she went to have a baby, to deliver. And her husband asked me, would you like to come and sleep with me tonight? And I was so happy, you know, because I thought, oh, how nice, he likes me. And I was happy. And of course, during the night, I all of a sudden realized that something is hurting me very much. But I kept quiet. And I didn't understand what's happening, and I was sure that I'm a very bad little girl and must be punished for something. And the wife came home from the hospital, and I moved to sleep in the room with the old lady. The uncle went to work because he was specialized for roads, and he wasn't at home. And this torture was every night, and it was terrible time for me. I finished the school, and in July came to visit me, not end of, after 2.5 weeks, a young girl of 18, that she was a relative from cousin of my father from Novi Sad. And how are you? And I came out with her from the flat, and I told her, listen, I am very, very upset, and I must be a terrible little girl because I'm punished every night like that. So she looked at me and she asked, are you sure? I said, of course I'm sure, only I don't dare to say because they will punish me even worse. She went away. She came next day and she told the old lady, I'm taking her for a walk if you don't mind. She took me and all of a sudden said, look, here we are at the police, and we shall go in and we shall tell your story to the police doctor, and we shall hear what he will answer. I didn't understand what's going on.
How old were you at this time?
At that time, 11 exactly, when it started. And the police doctor said, you don't lie, you spoke the truth. But he said something very interesting. He said, you know, that's the war, Russian law here, yet in Hungary. So if I write it down, he will be captured and he will be executed during 24 hours. Because this done is against the law. If you want me, I do it. If you don't want, I want. Of course, I started and told him, no, please, of course not. I didn't understand nothing. And this way it ended. This lady took me to her, summer house. And I was there with her for 1 month. So there is also a problem that to go back to Yugoslavia, the Hungarian law doesn't let you go because you are as a survivor from the war, an orphan, so you belong to the country. I should have been put in an orphan's home in Hungary. But the Yugoslav consul, I don't know how he managed, and the uncle of my father, who was nice to me, a very gentleman, took me to the border of Yugoslavia, and I came to Yugoslavia back, and I stood with the cousin of my father. And first of all, when I came, she told me straight away, you never in your life will be able to get married because that's what happened to you. People, men not married such a woman. Of course, never in a white dress. And then she told me that I'm so ugly that she doesn't want to be on the same side of the pavement, that I should go left and she right. And what at this time, what saved me, that they sent me every holiday from the school to this village where I was born, to this goy. And I've seen that I went by train on my own, and I've seen that I was looking terrible. And I've told them I'm ugly and nobody will. I didn't tell them that I was raped, because they're primitive people. And I've seen that I was neglected. And they always used to tell me, no, you have been the most loved little girl in the whole village. And when you have been born, your grandmother did for the whole village a big party. And you will be okay and everything will be good. And every holiday I went to them I started in September at them for 3 weeks to remember again serve and Christmas and all the holidays.
Mira, what was their names? Do you remember the names?
Of course, Miloš Matic. And his parents, they were simple farmers.
And they weren't Jewish?
No, they were Orthodox. But they used to work, his parents, the elder generation, worked for my grandmother in the village, and then for my mother. And they loved my mother and my father. My father was especially jolly man, a man of people, you know. He had millions of friends, not my mother. My mother started running the business in the village when she was 14 because her father died. That I didn't know nothing, that the peasants told me. Anyway, these simple people, good-hearted, saved my life. And luckily later I came to Israel. I came on 26th of December 48 to Israel, to Kibbutz Hazorea and Mapa.
How did you get to Israel? Who brought you?
All the Jews from Yugoslavia did a lot to emigrate to Israel. At that time it was already Israel, 48. Only the Prime Minister said not the orphans. The orphans belong to Yugoslavia. And then I didn't know, unluckily, that it was an orphan institute. I stood with these people that made my life miserable. And then this institute went and demonstrated before the Tito's house, and Tito allowed them also, the orphans, to go out. Do I make terrible mistakes when
Not at all. You're at this. It is amazing. It is incredible. Can I ask, when did you know that your father wasn't coming back? When did you realize that he's not going to be
That he won't come back?
Yeah.
Because even when I came to Israel, you know, it was on radio, the people are searching each other, and I was sure that he would have found me. And it's very interesting. After my husband died exactly 22 years ago, after that he was not here anymore, a couple of years. I went to visit in next Kvarshmariahu, a lady that all his years she told that we are some kind of far relatives. I was not interested to visit her especially. But I went to see her when my husband died. And she told me, she asked me, you know how your husband died? I said, I don't know. She gave me the address to write to the War Office of Hungary in Budapest. And I've got his number that he was in the army, Hungarian.
This is your father?
Yes. And I've written him on Hungarian, maybe 17 years ago, 18, that he was taken on 1st of July, 42, and I've heard, I didn't hear, but people were telling me that he spoke on the Red Cross, sent me a message if they know anything about him. They answered me that they know that he sent, that he was there, and there is my turn. And he sent a message, and he disappeared in Voroshilov, that's a town in Russia, during the war, and since then nothing. So, you know, again, I was maybe 25 years in Israel. It was a meeting of the Yugoslav community. There somebody told me, at that day when my father went 900 Jewish young men to the Hungarian army. From them came back 9.
From 900?
And one of these 9 told me that my father died from typhus. I don't know. I tell you what's said in the story, especially that the Jews were so nasty to me. And the Christian, one saved me, and the very simple peasant, they'll help me to survive. If not them, I don't know how I would have survived. And I was very lucky that I went to see them in Novi Sad. And that was already the young generation, and they liked my husband very much. And they came to visit us in Israel, and I went a few times back to Novi Sad to see them. And the youngest brother had no children, so I was also in a video film. I think I'm the only person in this universe who remembers it.
Wow. And Mira, can I ask, it's a very hard... Did the wife know what her husband was doing? The wife of the man that did this?
She loved me. But no, she was a peasant.
No, but the man that was so nasty to you, what he did to you, did his wife know? Do you think she knew?
You mean the Jewish?
Yeah.
They didn't she didn't love me because I was another mouse to feed. Who needs an orphan? At the beginning they got money, but then my father disappeared. Nobody sent money. They took me in for money, and all of a sudden didn't come in money. You have to understand, it's not easy. And to have on your head a child whom you don't like. What for? We have to realize that's not I cannot only blame them. You know, when I was young, I only blamed them. But now that I am older, I understand that's not an easy story to keep somebody's child in bad times. Not in good times, but especially not in bad times.
Did they ever tell you you must leave? Did they ever say...
Did what?
Did they ever say to you, you must leave? We don't want you here.
No, never. But, as I told you, because I never cried, when my husband died, I got psychoanalysis treatment for 10 years from Kupat Holing, because then I started to cry. And for 10 years. And then this was a very sweet lady. One day she asked me, do you know why your hands are shaking? I said, no, I went to Kupat Holim and I checked so and so and so. So she told me that was the shock.
Still from the shock?
That's something what I didn't take out. It damaged my nerve system. And that's why my hands are shaking. Since the day they started shaking. When I was 6.5, I remember that of course lately now it's worse. That, and you know, it's very difficult to be orphan. You have to please everybody. Another thing stayed with me. Many things stayed with me, but one, you know, even all these years when I was invited to some house and I knew that I'm welcome, I was like that shaking when I knocked the door or pressed the button of the ring. And because I remember that I never knew in what face they will open me the door. Why did you come back? Why didn't you they never said, why didn't you be killed by a tramway? Or why didn't you just disappear? You know, I was never told, I felt. So even my dearest friends know, they knew they're mostly dead, but let's say my neighbor, she's very my good friend. I just told her once, I cannot leave, please, the door, or I'm playing bridge. And I was invited to a lady to private flat. And I had to knock the door. And I was afraid that I shall faint. Then I realized that it came back to me. And then I asked her, next time when I'm invited, just leave, please, the door open. But this is still today.
Till today.
You cannot do about something like that. Or, you know, till July I was another person. All my life did everything and no problem. In July something got wrong in my back. And I know why. And my daughter started looking for a metapellet, and it was very difficult. And I got always like trembling when the subject came to talk about. And my daughter always said, what are you worried? You've got the money. There are many. And then, when she started to work, then I was sitting with me and started to think, why did I react like that? You know, my whole body was shaking like that. And then I realized that I was very afraid to be again dependent in my life. And with the moment he came to work, I felt that I want disturb my daughter. I don't this. My son works in India. That I won't disturb him, the family. So it stopped. But it's still from that time. Because look, if you've got the money, and I've got a nice house, I worked all my life and I got enough to live, and not that I manage everything. And I am getting from Bitoach Laumi, Nitzolei Shoah, so it's no big problem. But, you know, when my daughter used to come and we started to talk about the subject, in my whole body, I was like that.
And did you speak to your children about what happened to you with the Shoah?
My daughter knows more or less, but not everything, I'm sure. My son, he's a very sensitive person, and maybe he wouldn't like to know these things. But let's say, and I don't think so that my daughter-in-law is interested, and the youngest son of my daughter, his wife arranged in the University Reichmann, Zikaron Salon, and there were a few hundred students, many times went, and last year, actually I didn't want to go, but they called me from the army, from the Basis Glilot, 800 to 8,200, and I said, I'm old, I won't like it after war, and so many problems. And she asked me very much, so I went. Also hundreds of soldiers. They were very nice and asked many questions.
And when you speak, is it easier to speak now than it was before?
Look, I can do it after 10 years of treatment. Before, my husband and when I met my husband, because still it was in my head that nobody will ever want to marry me, the first thing I told my husband, listen, I know that nobody will ever marry me, so you better know about it. So he said, what's the problem? He was 12 years older than me. Not 12, 13. And he said, first of all, I go and kill him. So it's a hard story.
But your husband accepted, he accepted.
My husband came from Germany in 3 weeks before the Kristallnacht, and he was in the British Army, and he was a very good man, very nice person. And we worked hard. We started very tiny little room and loud. Well.
And Mira, you could speak to your husband about what happened to you?
Yes, mostly, but you know, always something. At that time, how to tell you, people were busy more what's happening every day, not the past. We want to be after the past. We want to be sabres.
And when you came to Israel, it was the beginning of the state. Was it difficult with
yes,
the Israeli
but I
children?
went to the kibbutz Hazorea. Again, before I left to kibbutz Hazorea, I had terrible time because this cousin of my husband, my father, with whom I came to Israel, she sent me, it was in February already, yes, and you know, with 2 little summer dress, without a towel, without a deep brush, without nothing. So the other children, they had towel, they had, and I had nothing. So it was terrible. But the day when I arrived to the kibbutz, I think that was my happiest day, because I got, like everybody, I got a toothbrush, I got a towel, I got 2 panties, I got 2 slacks, I got 2 blouses, pyjama. And I was not, I stopped to be the orphan, you know, in my head.
Could you speak to the other children about what
Nobody
happened?
spoke about nothing.
Nobody spoke. There were also other survivors.
Nobody, you know. Just now when I'm thinking so much about this time, it's unbelievable, Toda Rabba. And nobody spoke about nothing. We have been, I think, free, that we were total orphans, between 50 or 54. The other had or a mother, or the father, or very good relatives. I had nobody. And we didn't speak about this subject. They knew that I am an orphan, but how to tell you?
Did anybody ever ask you about how did you survive the war? What happened in...
In the kibbutz also, they were not interested in this story. Nobody was interested to hear, nothing.
It's incredible. And your teachers, no one asked you from the teachers or...
No, only one teacher, one madrich told me, don't worry, I don't want to self-prize. He said, you're intelligent, you will make it once. And you know, when I left the kibbutz, I was living with my friend. It's a very long story, everything. And when we married, my husband worked in a factory, and to make a little bit more money, he bought, because he was really some special person, a new actually machine to cut the grass. So we used to go to cut grasses, the grasses in Pituach, with our daughter. He bought a motorbike with the sides. And we used to go to cut it. And then here in Pituach was a gentleman, Mr. Bavli, who is Iraqi. But he studied in Heidelberg to be accountant. And he spoke to my husband only German. And one day, I always went and helped my husband. And one day he came to me and said in German, you have been born a lady and you will be again a lady.
Wow.
That's nice.
That's lovely.
But I was never a lady, I was always a simple person.
Well, you're very special. Mira, wow.
No.
Mira, did you go back to Novi Sad?
But
You went back to Novi Sad?
I went a few times, especially to these peasants that they moved to Novi Sad, and he became a very rich man. And the youngest, he always told me, you know why I became rich? Because when I was a child, I've got picture of him. I always went, your father took me many times in the carriage with him on his business trips. So I learned from him. Yeah. My father was as I told you, a lady killer, because I was in Israel. I was pregnant with my daughter. Some woman stopped me on the street and asked, "Are you the daughter of Misha Zilzen?" I said, "Yes." "I just want to tell you that he was a very special man." And she started walking, and I lost her. And I was so sorry that I was stunned. I had no time to open my mouth.
But if you look at the picture, you can see your father was so special, so... And you know, your mother as well. Your mother was an amazing lady. These are such...
It was done 1028, here it's written. 7 years before I was born.
So I have to ask you, Mira, how did these pictures survive? How did you get these pictures?
What happened, when my father took me from the house, he never wanted to go back. You know, he was upset, I believe. He must have collected the pictures and gave to this family where I was in Budapest, to his family. And they kept it for me, and they were always with me.
So this picture, and you can see this is the original. I mean, this is the only picture
I
with
am
you and your
standing
parents.
like a soldier. But you see, we never, in our house, we never bought, let's say, a ready-made dress or ready-made shoes. Somebody came to take the measurement for shoes, for dresses.
And this was in 1941, this picture. In 1941.
Here I was 41.
Yeah, 41, it was taken. So this picture is so precious, it's so...
Yeah.
And Mira, can I ask, what message do you give to your children and grandchildren? You've seen so much and you've been through so much.
Would you send me this? Thank you. So I will give them, I'm not so sure that people, that the family at that time when I'm still living, they are interested. Maybe later, when I won't be here, they would like to.
That's in many, many, many years, please God.
No, I hope as soon as better. I don't want to live long.
Oh, Mira, you've got so much to give. You've got so
No, I am very afraid of long life because I see so much misery when you get too old, and I don't want to be miserable. I always, when I was 10, I traveled alone between countries. I did everything alone, and it's very difficult for me, to be dependent. And I don't hear, and it's depressing.
But Mira, can I ask, what happened to the remainder of the family? To uncles and aunts and...
My father had 6 brothers and 2 died. His father was in the big war, He came home with tuberculosis. So the 2 youngest children died from the same sickness. Then there seems to be that they were very poor because the mother alone, and I know he had a beautiful sister, beautiful. She was married in Belgrade. Seems to be that she had 2 children. They were, of course, killed, everybody. And the eldest brother, I had their pictures even, he had two beautiful children. Seems to be that she must have been maybe 1 year younger than me, and the little boy who is on the pictures, he must have been 2 years. I've got a book that I've got maybe 12 years ago. All these Jews that they were living in Croatia were deported to Jasenovac. You heard about us? And it stays there that this family went to were deported to Jasenovac. What is terrible is like that they say the name of Josef Clicer, just a minute, I think Clara Clicer, Dina Clicer, the girl, and the baby. Just baby. They don't speak about the 2 years old boy. When I have seen it, I was very upset. And exactly here was somebody, doesn't matter. And she, because now they have in Jasenovac a museum. And I told the manager the story that this child is missing. So he said it could be that the parents gave the child to some friends, some goyim, and he was 2 years old. Most probably they loved him so much that nowhere is, no school, no institute is Reuven Clicer, I know his name. It doesn't exist. So it must have been taken, and people loved him. So I was very upset, and then I've seen a film that was done in Yugoslavia that they say, they tell exactly some story like that many people were adopted like that. Because this manager of the museum, he said he turned every institute, every monastery, everything looking for Reuven Clicer. So he told me, must be that your uncle gave him to a good friend, and they loved him and they gave him another name. How can a 2 years old child remember his parents? And I asked him, but he could see that he's a Jew. He said no, because after 38, the Jews didn't make Brit Milah.
After 38?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that, that's true.
Long stories.
And Mira, you coming to Israel, was that was a very positive coming to the kibbutz?
Moment that I came to Israel, you know, my third grandson, he was in Kita Gimel or Dalet. He got from his teacher to ask your grandparents, grandmother, how was the Klita in Israel? So I told him, Eran, write please for your grandmother, Medinat Israel, ze Eretz Zavat Halav Udvash. And since then they called him Eretz Zavat Halav Udvash.
The land of milk and honey. Yeah. But you're very happy you came?
Very. For me, Israel is and look what's happening. It's very upsetting for me.
And do you see parallels, what's happening now with the world, how it's turning, how it was?
It's depressing. I used to protest when it was here, but I've got the flag outside, but no more I cannot. You see, what happened? In July I had a terrible attack in my back. My grandson is a orthoped specialized in Beth Holy Meir, a very well-known orthoped only for calf and ankle. But he, of course, arranged me to go to specialize for the Amud Shidra. And they said it will be better there. But I went and made a tzilum on an MRI. I don't remember. Anyway, they have seen that I've got 2 broken huliot. Used to be. How do you say huliot?
Vertebrae.
And many years ago. And then I remember something. When I used to live after the war in this cousin from my husband, my father, I had to carry through the winter 2 big buckets of water because the pipes used to freeze. And I remember that I had sometimes terrible pains that I felt I'd faint. But when I finished to carry the water, I always went to the village. And there they put me to sleep next to the oven, and they, they massaged my leg with rakia, and they gave me the best food. And I was young, and now it came back. So now I can see that it was a big damage.
From those days?
Yeah.
Mira, it's amazing.
But I must say, I was never, how to say to you, I met a lady a couple of days ago. How are you? And I answered her. And she said, Mira, you have always a smiley eyes. Also, when I was miserable, I always pretended and smiley eyes.
It's wonderful.
Because if you are miserable, people don't like you better. That's right.
It's true.
Only if you are smiling.
Mira, you've got a lot of nachas, a lot from your children and grandchildren. And
very much. I'm very happy with them. I've got a wonderful family, thank God. All of them are nice, good to me, loving. Even my daughter-in-law is wonderful to me. She arranged them. Be careful, you see.
And Mira, you give talks in the Zikaron Basalon.
Pardon me?
You do the talks at the Zikaron Basalon. Zikaron Basalon.
I am
Mira, I just want to thank you.
I'm going for years already.
To do the talks. So Mira, I am so incredibly grateful to you. And these are pictures that you have from your 1935. It's written 1935. And you're smiling. Just as you're smiling now. You're smiling in these little pictures.
You see?
You came from such a special...
Novi Sad, Kala, Alexander now. And it was...
36.
No.
35, 36. And from
1
Novi Sad.
year old I was.
Wow, this is when you were 1 year, but smiling, always smiling. Mira, you are so...
Here is the man, the peasant that I told you that I love him. This, my father always took care of him, you see? He stayed with me a lot.
And he was not Jewish?
No, Pravoslav, Orthodox. Orthodox, very religious Orthodox. Here you see my father when he was taken to the Hungarian army. When I went back to Novi Sad first time with my husband and my son, the man who worked for my family, he was still alive. And here my father has written to me.
And this is the original. This is your father sent this to you
Yes, Clicer, Mira.
in 1942.
Yeah, when he was taken.
And your father is
Here. And imagine, this man told us that my father took him with him when he was taken to the army. And when he arrived with him, he was asked, why did you take it with you? Him? My father answered, because I'm used that somebody shall polish my shoes, cook for me, do. And he said that he was very beaten, my father. I don't know.
Mira, can you read what your father wrote to you?
Sure. To my beloved little daughter, in memory from your loved father. I am reading Hungarian.
And this was in Budapest. It was sent to Budapest
Yes, that's where we were living.
in 1942.
I have written it in Ivrit that my
Yeah.
children, who will be ever interested.
They will, of course, they'll be interested. And here's a picture of your father. This is so incredible.
The youngest son of my daughter has heard the story, but the others no.
And in these,
This is my father's sister and her daughter.
and they never survived.
Yes, they survived.
They survived.
I was at them in
Your father's sister and the daughter.
her daughter.
This is in 1941.
Yeah, they were in Novi Sad to visit.
And where did your father's sister live?
In Bugojno, next to Sarajevo.
And did you ever come to Israel?
Her son and her youngest son, he came to see me in kibbutz. I came February, he must have been in June. He visited me, and from that day my life turned other, because when all the children had the possibility to go and visit family, I had never to where to go, and on that day I always went to them.
That's wonderful. And we're in these pictures?
That in 40, the Germans bombed Novi Sad, and the Jewish man, here is my father, were taken to clean it.
So this is 1940. That's
Here, my
amazing.
father, it is here. It's written even 40.
And where's your father in the picture? In the middle.
And here is he.
It's amazing that they took these pictures.
Yeah. But after winter will burn it.
And Mira, can I ask, your aunt, did she ever want you to come and stay with her?
She?
Yeah.
No, because
Because-
the position was also difficult. Her daughter got married and divorced and a
okay.
child.
But you're happy that you were in Israel?
Nobody wants an orphan on him. And now, here, this is the man, the Milos, who was so nice to me. He loved me always. He
Yes.
always told me that I'm his most best friend in this world.
And you kept in touch?
Yes, he died unluckily. And he was dying first. This is my grandmother from my mother's side as a baby.
This is amazing. This is such, wow, this is the original.
You can see the old
That's
style.
incredible.
See, my brother was born in 1300, free, so
These are so special.
this is my beautiful aunt. Look at how beautiful. Her children were killed.
Oy. And this is your, what was her name?
Giza,
This is from 1933.
yes.
Giza
Giza.
and Yosef.
Alkali.
And what happened to Giza and...
Pardon me?
What happened to Giza and her husband?
They were both killed in
you
next
know
to Belgrade with their two children. This, you see, this was the young aunt that I lived in Budapest, and this is the uncle of my father. He was a very good man and nice person, and my son is very much, I like him.
They're very small pictures, but
She was the sister of my grandfather. This boy, he was the son of this aunt that you have seen her with. He was a very good violinist, and after the war, it was a big process in Croatia. He was tortured, that's unbelievable, 38
this
years.
picture's taken in 38.
In March, 38 March.
And did he not survive?
He was killed, tortured.
Oh, it's so sad.
Only his brother survived and the sister. You see. These are later pictures.
Is this going back to...
But when my husband said, these were the children from the kibbutz after 50 years.
Wow. And you've kept in touch?
Not. He was my very good friend. He's the only man who is still living. And we are in touch.
And is he also a survivor?
They were all survivors.
All survivors. And your husband?
This is my husband.
So you can just show.
The first wedding of my daughter. And this is my son.
Wait, sorry.
Doesn't.
So I just want to show the picture. Wow. This is so special. And this was in 1976. The wedding was in 76. Wow. Gee, that's very special.
I was lucky in Israel, you know, that I always had good friends. Actually, when I came back to Novi Sad and I was taken the first day to the school, then, no, that's we've traveled somewhere, I don't know.
When you were taken back to Novi Sad, did you recognize the school?
I started school on Serb language, you know. So the manager wanted to be very nice to me, and I had always clothes from Sochnut, miserable. And she took me to the class, and you know, it was Russian time, everybody jumped up and quiet like. And she said, I brought, you know, a new girl. She is an orphan and poor thing. So who wants to be nice to her? And who you can imagine how I felt. And who wants to sit next to her? And before, at the end of the first row, a little girl got up and she said, sit next to me, I will be your friend. She was my lifelong best friend. She died in 2017, and her daughter is at least calling me once a week. She was June before the war visiting me. She stayed with me one week.
What was her name?
Miriam Totovic. And she called me, her family called me Tsitsika from Cilce.
Wow.
You know, really, I was lucky in my life later that I had good friends. And my biggest luck was that I had a very good husband. Because if I would have some husband who was beating me, I had nowhere to go.
Well, Mira, you are amazing. And just as this little picture, these two pictures where you're smiling, you're still smiling. And you must continue to smile.
That. It seems to be.
Mira, you are just so amazing. And I'm so grateful from the bottom of my heart for being here in your home and for you relating this most incredible story. You really have been through so much, and look, you're smiling still, and you're so really positive. You have such a positive outlook on life.
I had always one good thing. I was looking always on the positive.
On the positive side. It's like the cup that is half full, not half empty.
Yeah, I had kindergarten private for 26 years. Then I was before Roseret Bait, I was washing dishes, I did babies. I did many things. I didn't mind.
Well, it's so good to see you here in your beautiful home in Israel, and I just am so incredibly grateful to you.
I think only Israel could give a survivor this feeling of, of independence.
And belonging as well, and independence.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Mira, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to you. I'm so grateful.
And if you would like to come again, you are welcome, of course.
Mira, I am so grateful to you.
You think that there will be people interested in that?
Not only will they be interested, I think whoever watches this, you will touch their hearts, because it is so special, Mira.